Okay, if you're watching, we are in fact live going on the In Pit Lane YouTube channel and also the In Pit Lane Facebook page. It's a thing we call Full Course Yellow. Just a few of us getting together every Thursday night to have a bit of a chat. We thought we'd invite you along to have a bit of a chat as well. If you'd like to make a contribution to the conversation, if you'd like to ask a question, or you can do that by just putting comments below. If you're watching on Facebook, by all means, you're more than welcome, but you will get a better experience in terms of quality of picture and also just the ease of use of the chat and all the rest of it by going to the In Pit Lane YouTube channel. And while you're there, please do us a favour and like and subscribe. It is really, really important. There's a whole YouTube algorithm thing, and the more people who click like, the more people who subscribe, the more they will push the channel to other people, to like-minded people. So that's really important. So if you haven't done so already, please like and subscribe. If you're watching on Facebook though, and you just want to hang around there, that's problem. Mad Cow Mark is joined us already. So g'day, Mark. How are you? So welcome to you once again. And so I think we're just going to talk about basically. What's been going on this week? It's been a busy week with all sorts of things. We've got movement on the Formula One front in the driver situation. We've also got movement in the media section here in Australia with Supercars Media and also ARG's coverage. That's all been announced. David Reynolds is on the move from Erubus, as we all expected. And it's now official. We talked last week about Audi coming back to Le Mans. Now it's official. Porsche are coming back as well. And although it is not official yet, it heard on very, very good authority that very soon there will be an announcement that Honda will be, at least at the North American Sports Car Championship, coming back to Indy with a factory team run by but none other than Roger Penske. So that's coming up hopefully very soon. That's the rumour's been around for a while now, and as I think it was Marshall Pruitt said on his podcast on the Week in Sports Cars, that pretty much the story's been written already. We're just waiting to get the quotes from the press release or from the interview and press send, and it'll be away. So they're expecting something to be announced pretty soon. So that's really exciting when you look at it. Le Mans in a couple of years' time, the 100th anniversary. Coming up in a couple of years' time, we'll have Toyota, we'll have Peugeot, Porsche, Audi, possibly Honda. We'll have Glickenhaus and possibly by Collis as well. That's 7 top teams in the Premier category. So we're going from basically one team in Toyota at the last round to possibly having 7 or 8 in a couple of years time. So great news for those of us who love sports car racing. But Pete, Formula One is the year is finally over. Max wrapped up the season last weekend with a victory. Lewis sort of went through the motions. He was still saying he felt pretty crooked from the recovering from the COVID. So the fact that he finished third was pretty good. But we've got some new drivers announced already. We've got a Japanese driver coming back into Formula One again.
Sonoba.
Yeah, he's been running in Formula 2 and was quite successful, and it's good to see. That'll be really good for the sport. I mean, it's one of those things. It's a bit like having French drivers in Formula 1. They don't take much interest in the sport unless they've got one of their own. I mean, I suppose it's even a bit like Australia, but I think we're not as bad as sort of, okay, we've got Dan Ricciardo in at the moment, but even on those occasions before Mark Webber, between Alan Jones and Mark Webber, we didn't sort of, lose our love affair with Formula One just because there weren't any Australians in it. But certainly the Spanish, they've got Fernando Alonso back, and Fernando Alonso, not surprisingly, was the fastest driver in the young drivers test.
Yes. I mentioned they went down like a lead balloon with everyone because
there was no doubt that a lot of the teams were not particularly happy about. Go, Paul. Paul's joining us once again. Evening to Paul. I think that I think that it was good to it's good to have. I think it was good for him to come back just to get some miles, but also the main reason that they've done it is because of the publicity it brought. It was in terms of making people interested in the young driver test and generating column inches, as they say in the old days, it certainly worked. It got a lot of attention everywhere, both the controversy and the fact that he was so quick. And the story sort of writes itself. If he's fast, it's like, wow, he hasn't lost a step. If he was slow, it was like, oh, he's over the hill. So either way, you got a story out of it.
Yeah,
exactly. As the old saying is, any publicity is good publicity, and especially when it comes to Fernando Alonso, when it comes to any motorsport category he competes in.
Yeah, he'll certainly bring a lot of fans in from Spain, because they absolutely do. When he raced the first time at Indianapolis, the Americans just couldn't believe the numbers they were getting from Spain, from people watching like every lap that he did in pre-qualifying and qualifying, just everything he did. They live streamed it, and the Spanish just couldn't get enough of it. So yes, that's good that he'll be back.
To be back, guys. I watched you guys last couple of weeks, but one of the things I noticed you were talking about on last week's on Full Course Yellow was the analogy of the sidekick, or the number 2 driver, or the number 1 driver, or whether they're treated equal or whatever it may be. So obviously, the ones, there's a few watching tonight already. I saw you said hello to a minute ago, Brett. Goes back to how big a threat do you think Mr. Perez is going to be? Because you know what? Can drive.
Yeah, that's going to be. They haven't sort of announced. I was surprised. I thought that they would make an announcement over the weekend that he would get the Red Bull drive. But I think there's obviously something going on behind the scenes in terms of contracts and who's bringing money and how much money is going where, and whether they've got to pay out Albon out of or what they're going to do with him in order to compensate him for the loss of the. You just couldn't believe, as we said last week, you couldn't believe that a driver who has had such a really good year and actually won his first Grand Prix, one race later would be basically finished with Formula One for at least for another year.
But I wonder for this scenario, I wonder, because the F1 media is sort of crying outrage with Marzipan and his antics. I wonder if Haas will bow to pressure, and then Sergio Perez will come in and bring money to Haas and be their driver.
It'd be a good fit. I mean, because of the American connection and all that, and with the Mexican connection, the Mexican money and all the rest. And I think they're based down in Texas, in the main company. So he would be a really good fit for Haas. And that would be a really. But Marzipan is bringing just so much money. I mean, it's he's Sergio's bringing a lot. Marzipan has the potential to bring 5 times that amount. He's the family and his backers are just enormously wealthy, and I imagine that any problems. And as we said last week, I mean, it was silly. It was a silly thing to do, but it was. He's young and he's stupid and he's self entitled and he's just done something. But I mean, it wasn't the end of the world. Had it been like a total stranger or sort of a grid girl or a promotional model or something like that, you would have said, no, that's it, you're out. That is assault. Enough, you go. But it was basically as the young woman said, it was a couple of friends fooling around doing stupid things, to get onto basically to generate some social media interest. Well, it certainly did that, but for all the wrong reasons.
Haas and F1 have come out and backed him now since. So, I mean, obviously there was initial disgust and there was statements saying that it wasn't the best thing in the world to be doing, and that they vilify, they shouldn't be doing that, blah blah blah, smack on the wrist. But now they've both released statements saying, we are fully behind this man. He's sorry for his antics, and it won't ever happen again. Let's move on.
Yeah, it wasn't a hanging offence. I don't think it was there. We tend to overreact to a lot of this sort of. I mean, some of this stuff is important, but we do tend to overreact a little bit for these things. I just wonder if it was somebody like, say, Dan Ricciardo was doing it or something. It would have been, particularly the Australian media. It would have been, good on you, it's just having a bit of a lark. I mean, he's a boy. But it was the evil Russian. With the son of the billionaire.
They would have said it was the Bogan coming out in Daniel if they had said that.
Well, there's not a huge sort of jump between. I mean, as I say, you can take the kid out of Perth, but you can't take Perth out of the kid. That's for sure. But anyway, so that's sort of Formula One. So they've announced the another update to the calendar today. Vietnam is still off the calendar, basically because the main person they were dealing with and who was sort of the brains and the money and the power behind it all is currently doing time.
Oh.
Yeah, so they're not. So the
fine line between the law and money in Vietnam, isn't it?
Well, with motor racing, it's everything. As we saw, unfortunately, that was a really bad thing happened. Of course, on the weekend. Speaking of Perth, I mean, at the motorplex over there at the drags when somebody was shot. Unfortunately, a young boy got injured as well. Part of sort of a bikey turf war over there, and the number of the gang members were competing or watching. I think some of them were competing at the Perth motorplex, and another mob turned up, and it turned into a bit of a showdown, the Wild West. So.
Why is it sounding like I missed out on so much over the last few days? I mean, you spend some time writing and reading and working, and suddenly all this happens. What the heck?
Speaking of writing and reading, and all, but your audio is crackling like nobody's business.
Because everybody's audio is crackling to me.
Is it?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it wasn't crackling before, so ours is smooth. Everybody else's is smooth at our end, but yours was crackling big time. So there's something in the chain there that it doesn't like. So have a bit of a play around with that while we're doing stuff. See if it can go away.
There's $1 million reward for that shootout at the OK Corral in Adelaide as well too, which the police unusually don't do straight away, but they said they want to get to the bottom of this as quick as possible. Obviously, because there's going to be more killings otherwise. So there's $1 million in the ring to see if they can snuff out a few suspects.
And it's so sad. It's so sad. The drag racing has been caught up with it because drag racing, unfairly cops it so often. I mean, some idiot, wraps a GTR or a WRX or a hot up Commodore or something around a pole somewhere, and it's like illegal drag racers go crazy, and it's like, it's not drag racing at all. It's a family sport. It's a really good sport. It's very professional. It employs a lot of people in Australia. It's very, very popular at the top level, and it cops a real kicking from the mainstream media. Some of the idiots in the mainstream media at times. A lot
of people volunteer too, Brett. Not just paid for it. A lot of people volunteer their time and money to make these things happen as well, though too.
Oh, of course, yeah. That's the thing. I mean, they're getting back to some degree of just some of problems that they've got over there. They've just changed the management of that track, and ANDRA, the Australian National Drag Racing Association, has actually taken over the management of that place, which I think is interesting. I think there's a few people sort of looking a bit sideways as to why how that has happened, because they I don't, to my knowledge, they don't have a great deal of experience in running a major venue like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that all happens. But at least they've got now the future of the track is pretty much assured. Apparently there were some doubts in some sectors that the track would even keep going, because there's not just the drag strip there. There's also a speedway attached to it as well, and they're both very, very popular venues. So that's good to know. So hopefully they'll get that sorted out, and they'll crack down on that biking nonsense, like sooner rather than later. But
Been a bit, speaking a good segue there, but there's been a lot of nonsense going on in the local scene as well, though, too, whether it be media or driver changes or circuits. Jeez, there's been
where do we start? Do we start, in terms of the big moves and who's going where? I mean, it's not so much, as you say, it's not just on the team and the drivers situation. It's the media as well, and of course, what everybody's talking about is the execution of Mark Larkham and from the telecast, and rumours that Supercars Australia, in particular Sean Seamer, who, let's not forget, is not a motorsport person. He originally came from Foxtel. He's a television person, and there's rumours that he was pretty keen to sort of get rid of Mark, and also to pull the reins in on people like Neil Crompton and that as well, too, because he wants to, quote, dumb down the coverage and make it more accessible to non-motor racing people. He thought that that's the stories that both he and James Warburton apparently thought that the coverage was going over the head of the average viewer, and they were turning off as a result of it. But any real hardcore fan, I mean, Larko's. There's two things. One, he knows what he's doing. He certainly knows the sport. He knows all the technical stuff, but also he's just got a great personality as well. I mean, he ticks all of the boxes. And I tell you what, if he doesn't get back to Supercars, if I was overseas with Sky F1, I'd be quite happy to sort of make a phone call and say, hey, listen, do you want to come over and do that for Formula One? Because I think he'd be a great value to any coverage. He's a good performer.
He's entertaining, and he's, as I said, he's just about done everything that can be done within the paddock. Full stop. He's been a driver. He started from the grassroots. He's been a team owner. He's adapted to media. He's just he's been fantastic across the board. And a lot of the criticism, obviously the articulate criticism that's been thrown back at Supercars and said, if these are your reasons for sacking him, because this is what you said in your statement, this is completely untrue. I mean, dumbing it down, he actually explains things from a technical term to a normal term that people outside the sport normally wouldn't understand. And I think he's very good at conveying that as well, though, too. Yeah. And they might take a shot from where he's taking, from term one of Bathurst. Let's just make that for an example, where plenty of other commentators have stood there before, and he might say, look at this and see the way a car comes around. He might describe something about the car and he'll say why it does it, but he doesn't do it in a harsh way that you think and scratch your head. Geez, what does he mean? Everybody understands what he's talking about. So it's something that the reasoning behind his sacking is completely unvalidated, and I think everyone, the general public, is calling their bluff.
I think there's obviously some. I think there's some problems in terms of personal relationships or something in there, in terms of how they get on. I complained earlier in the year that at one stage, both Neil Crompton and Mark Scaife, I thought were they were doing all that blokey sort of, like, you're a loser, you're a bigger loser, that sort of rubbish, which really annoys me. And they did it at one stage. They did something, I forget the exact moment, but they did something in the middle of Mark explaining something, and they sort of made fun of it because it was very technical, and they were sort of laughing about it. And I think they really demeaned him. It was just. I was really angry. As I said, I don't normally comment on the sort of the performances that people do, because I know how bloody hard it is. It's not an easy job to do. Everybody thinks they can just get up and do it, and you can't. I mean, it's commentary is far from.
Do you think it went beyond banter? Do you think, Brett? Do you actually think it went beyond banter with those comments?
I felt it was demeaning. I felt that it was almost like he was making a point which to me sounded very, very valid. But it was very technical. But it was one of those very minor things where he was pointing out that very minor thing may have an effect on the race there, and they just, instead of saying well, I wouldn't agree with that, or I think that you're overstating it, they basically laughed it off and said, oh, come on, don't it just felt really uncomfortable to me in terms of it's like this guy's your expert, and you're not just disagreeing with him, you're laughing at him, and I just didn't like it. I didn't like it at all.
That is pretty poor form, and let's face it, of that team, Larko is the one that will get jobs with other broadcasters, whereas Mark Scaife and Neil Crompton, I don't think so.
Well, I think Crompton will. Like Crompton did come.
Yeah.
By the way, your sound is still really bad.
Yeah, I'm about to reboot my mobile router, and I'll be back.
Yeah, but
Good stuff.
I think Crompton is there. Crompton has worked, like for ESPN in America. He's done there. I think he's a very good commentator, but I don't like the combination of him and Scaife. It's too blokey. It's too sort of like it's like a couple of guys sort of getting together at the pub and having. So I know a lot of people like that sort of thing, but I don't. I think it lacks professionalism. And I think that once again, it's demeaning. And also, they just keep going back. I mean, you'd think with the way they were talking, okay, Mark Scaife is a certified champion and has a long string of championship and major race wins behind him. Crompo was a good ordinary driver, and that's but the way you hear it at times, you'd think that he'd won sort of half a dozen championships and the Indianapolis 500 and was one step off the Triple Crown.
Yeah. Well, that's what I said. I think Crompo's got a good way of translating the general state of affairs. He's very good at describing a whole circuit and getting it across to the viewers well and touching on different issues. So I agree with you. He'll have no problem getting a job because he knows how to smooth things over, so to speak. But gee, the catalyst. I mean, we could go on about this all night between these guys, but I think there's so many things going on, as you said, with the local supercars and motorsport. There's also the catalyst that's created a whole lot of other issues as well too in the last week, or it's been going on for a few weeks. Is that obviously Tickford Racing applied for another wreck through Supercars, one of the ones that got put in the shelf 2 years ago in 2018, and they've been lobbying everyone. I mean, there's one team that's been directly lobbying against. They don't want it. All the rest of the teams are saying no, thank you, but respectively and nicely. And yet, it's created a whole lot of sponsorship debacles. It's got drivers that maybe not getting a gig next year that did quite well this year and maybe deserve a full-time drive. They'll have to be co-drivers next year. So there's sponsors, there's teams, there's team managers, there's drivers, all this because of one wreck and the switching around musical chairs of the merry-go-round that is Supercars this year, I suppose.
Yeah, well, they obviously want to limit the number of wrecks that are out there because it's a matter of it's the difference between slicing the pie up with 23 slices or slicing it up with 24 slices. And the slices are small enough to begin with, especially sort of over the next couple of years. If they now that they've lost Adelaide, they've lost that. That was a big payout for them. I don't think that they want to keep it to as fewer teams as possible to make sure that they don't sort of overstretch themselves. But as you say, the problem is now we've just got there's so many drivers who are good drivers who are going to miss out, and then you've got that next generation, people like Tom Randall and all who just he once again wins the championship, the Super 2 championship. Should be first cab off the rank to move up, but at the moment, I mean, he's still and he's got backing behind him. Rusty French continues to
he did
be there behind him.
Correct. If they gave him a wreck, if Supercars said they'd give him a wreck, Tickford even said he will run this next year. We'll run him as a car, as a permanent wild card all year, and take no slice of the pie for fees. They even said we'd do that for the whole year, and they still got Supercars said no, and still the other team said that sounds great, but no thanks, because what's going to happen the following year? So
that's always
Lee Holdsworth was going to miss out in the gig, and Tom Randall was going to get the fourth spot if they could secure another wreck.
Yeah, that's the danger of having the lunatics running the asylum. I mean, it's all right for them to have a say, but I mean, everybody's got a self-interest, and they're all sort of looking after themselves. So, and they're not looking at the bigger picture. And as far as fans go, I mean, the more the merrier. I mean, that's one of the things that sort of annoys me about supercars, especially when Bathurst comes around, and you sit there and there's 23 or 24 cars on the grid. And you're thinking, they could open up this to the Super 2 teams as well, and they could at least have 30 or 35 or something, like bring in a bit of variety. But no, they just keep it as all very sort of tightly controlled with the franchises and all the rest of it, so they can just keep the money going up. That's why I think that like the supercars have got some huge challenges ahead when you consider things like the Australian Races Group stuff. It's have a look at the card that they're going to put on. I mean, that's going to be a real value for money meeting if you go to most of them. You're going to get TCR, which is they're looking at pretty good fields with that again. S5000, which we've only seen a couple of races, but they've
But just on that, there's been some quiet testing over in the Bend in South Australia in the last couple of weeks by a couple of players there as well, though too. So there's a few jumping on the S5000s. I reckon they'll be straight out of the gates like the Melbourne Cup when the first race of the S5000s is, because everyone's keen to do it, and the young fellas that have been getting it have enjoyed the open wheelers.
Well, at Sandown on Saturday, I caught up with young Tommy Smith, who was one of the people who tested over there, and and he just absolutely loved it. And he was just saying, and he's been racing overseas, racing in Asian Formula 3, and wants to put a package together for S5000, because he just said, he says, as he said, they're just really different in terms of they're a different challenge completely to a Formula 3 car. As he said, the Formula 3 car is a lot more balanced. It's much faster through the corners. It's a very good package that they've got together. You can see that like Stuart's running through it now. I mean, touring car masters, Trans Am V8 touring cars, which is the older sort of the old Kumo series. The GT World Challenge, and they've announced the races there. That's interesting. GT World Challenge, only one long distance race. That's obviously as a direct result of the demands of the competitors locally. But yes, but with Stefan Rattel behind that now, and as you can see, as part of the GT World Challenge, and interesting enough, sponsored by AWS. Which you could tell last year that that's Amazon's offline service. You can tell that they sponsored GT World Challenge, because the quality of the live stream for all the GT stuff last year was just was much better than it has been. It was very stable. It was very high quality. It was the Bathurst 6 hour. That's a race that's just going to keep growing and growing. And then of course you got the Bathurst International, which obviously couldn't run this year at the end of the year, where you're going to have a huge international TCR race, and probably a lot of people, with hopefully the Bathurst 12 hour coming back the year after. I think you're going to find a lot of Asian teams, plus a few of the European teams, will be getting their cars over to Australia early, and popping over and getting a few laps in at the Bathurst International. And then leaving the cars here, going home, having Christmas, and then coming back and doing the 12 hour. So that'll be a really, really big meeting as well, because I mean anything at Bathurst. But there you can see look at that line. It's an interesting lineup that you've got there. So it'll be really good.
There's some good friends of the show.
That looks like more fun to watch than V8 supercars, that's for sure. I mean, open wheelers at Bathurst, that is going to be so good.
Yeah, I'm amazed. I'm amazed that they got through. I mean, when they put that forward that they were trying to get to Mount Panorama, I thought they're never going to allow. And I know I can probably say this now, but Eugene Arocca spoke to me early and said at the time, we really, really want to make this happen. Where we're very keen to but it's going to take a lot of work to make this possible. But if there's a way we can make it happen, we're going to make it happen. And they, to everybody's credit, including the FIA, they have made it happen. So yeah, that'll be as you say, to see those big banger open wheelers flying around Mount Panorama. Yeah, that'll be something. And also coming up in. And I'm sort of thinking of it's hard to plan anything with the way things are at the moment, but it just so happens the opening round at in Tasmania next year falls on it's the last weekend of January, which just happens to be my birthday. And I'm thinking for my birthday, I might give myself a treat and head over there, because I haven't been to Tasmania since I was 13. And I haven't been to a race meeting at Baskerville or Simmons Plains, so wouldn't mind
It'll
catching up with both of those.
So yeah, it won't be a cold, birthday for you.
Yeah, it'll be a great time of the year, and that's we're seeing we now know that the 12-hour isn't happening. It's probably not a bad way to spend a week. Is head down there and head into Launceston, do the round at Simmons Plains, then do the drive down through the state. Stop off a few places along the way and a few tourist attractions, and then see out the meeting at Hobart.
Just finishing off on the S5000s, as when I was doing a holiday sort of thing like you, I was over at the Bend and I caught up with Tim Macro, a friend of our show. We spoke to him a few times, and he's always generous with his time. He said at the Bend early this year he was trying to get a team together to run a car, and he's just done just that during a tough year. He's got 2 cars running, so under his banner too. So in the series. So look, everyone's trying to get together. It's a who's who of the open wheelers, either previous to back in the days for the Formula 5000s, or the young guns that want to have a crack at it now and see it as a bit of fun, as a stepping stone, or even just broadening their horizons when it comes to their experience in driving a variety of cars, which will only add feather and a bow to their caps as well too. So it's going to open up the doors for all types of racing for them throughout Australia, which diversifying your CV is always going to help you with your career.
Well, the good news is, I mean, the coverage on Channel 7, both on the 7 Mate, most of the stuff will not be on the main. It'll be on 7 Mate, most of the ARG stuff, apart from probably the Bathurst races and a couple of others. But so they'll be on 7 Mate. So they'll have free-to-air television. Every round will be seen on free-to-air television, and things like qualifying and all the rest of it will be seen on 7 Plus, which is their online service. So you're going to be able to watch every single round without any subscriptions, without giving Rupert Murdoch any money or anything like that. You're going to be able to see every single round of that series. And for a sponsor, I mean, I know which one I'd like if they sort of come, because we know ourselves. I mean, from In Pit Lane, that when you talk to sponsors, what they want is free to air television. They can say all they like about free-to-air television's dying. No one watches it. Everybody's watching online. That's not what the figures say. That the figures say, yes, within a younger demographic, people under 25. That's true. People aren't watching television anything like they used to. But over that age, people are still watching a lot of television, a lot of free-to-air television. Yes, so they're watching a lot more Netflix and stuff like that, but still the biggest audiences are still on free-to-air television, whether people like it or not.
Absolutely. And the silly season with the drivers is not only just the drivers taking their sponsorship with them, I suppose. Year by year, I think it becomes more public, the knowledge of everyone out there is who's with Castrol with, who's Boost with now, who's etc. So team managers have swapped over and etc. But it's going to be there's still seats available in different spots and not necessarily being locked down yet.
Yeah, obviously it depends on the sponsorship, and I imagine a lot of people are also waiting to see what happens with the COVID thing, because we still don't know, as we've seen, even just today. I mean, in the last 2 days, I mean, it was all like New South Wales were, we're on top of this. It's all, it's all control, and suddenly it's gone from, like at lunchtime today there were 5 cases. Just before
17.
we flicked on, there are now 17.
Yeah,
that's in the space.
Yes, 3 for 187 now. Yes, you're about 40 runs short now, Brett.
Okay, so Coley's still in. What's
Coley and Rahane. Sorry, this is me switching my left and right. Apologies. 3 for 187. The Indians are putting up a fight, and we like to see that because it makes a great game.
So how many's Coley now? Because he's got his half century just before I came in.
Coley is. Rahane 41. I'm squinting too hard if I try and see how many balls they're on. Just yeah. So yeah, that's
a good performance in those conditions. Because normally what we've seen in those day-night tests is that once the after tea, once the lights come on, the ball starts doing something, and the wickets start tumbling. So that is a great performance. For what it's worth, I've actually got, call me non-patriotic and all the rest of it by all means, but I got my money on India because I got them at $2.90 the other day, and I went, yeah, I can throw $10 at that. I think they're going to win this. So, So
just the first test or the series, Brett?
The first test is the only one that Coley will be playing because he's going to go straight after he's finished here. He hops back on the plane, goes back to India because his wife's giving birth. So he won't be back until the one-day international. So he'll miss Boxing Day and the New Year test and the Brisbane. I think they're playing at Brisbane because they'll miss out somewhere this year. I think it's Perth missing out this year. I forget either Brisbane or Perth has missed out, but either way. I think the Australians will be very, very happy to see the back of Virat Kohli because basically once he gets in, he's very hard to remove.
He digs in. Question with notice, Brett. You put a post up on the in-pit lane today on Facebook, I noticed. The Supercross that was in 2019 was, you put a whole lot of statistics up to say it was one of the best in the world.
Well, best in Australia. It won. It finished 5th the Events Australia in their end of year awards. I don't know why, because it was actually last year, as you remember, but we were both there, and it was in terms of the media day, and it was very professionally run. It was a very professional presentation. We had highlights and footage on in pit lane on the show on the Thursday night because the people behind it sort of sent us, kept us up to date with plenty of footage, and gave us access to riders, and it was a very professional run, and they finished 5th in the thing. I think things like I think it was the Bledisloe Cup might have come out on top. Interesting that things like the Grand Prix and the Australian Open didn't rate a mention, or even though the grand final, any of those things. It was Bledisloe Cup and a couple of other things. That's right. I think the one was actually the women's T20 World Cup, because that was obviously the biggest event, sort of one-off event that we had beside the football. So, yeah, that was. Anyway, congratulations to the team behind that, and it'll be back this year. They moved from Sydney, of course. Been up in Sydney for a long time, and they decided to bring it down to Melbourne. They got some government support, and it certainly paid off. They had a big crowd and good television ratings, and it'll be, and hopefully 2021 it'll be back again, and we can hopefully we can get out there and do some more interviews and get some more footage.
Oh, it was great. I think, Brett, as you said, all those things. Plus, I think the organisers did a great. One of the probably the better aspects of it is they were very selective, and they were extremely smart on the international arrival on who they invited to come across. A couple from America, American. They brought another one from over in Europe. There's a couple of New Zealanders. So they brought talent from all over the world, and they brought also people with talent and with personalities. And they brought in some young guns. They brought a couple out of retirement, or just obviously some cameo appearances. I had a good chat with Ricky there as well too, who's the greatest Supercross rider for all time in the world. He is GOAT, the greatest of all time. Full stop. They just brought some really great people over. And as you said, the format that they produced for us, give us access to with interviews. They put on a bit of a show for us on the Friday when they were still setting up the event. So that was great. They've still got bulldozers and trucks and tractors running around the middle of Marvel Stadium causing havoc. And they went, hang on for a minute, guys. Just give us 5 minutes. We're just going to put 20 bikes around the track and do some crazy jumping, which you got some excellent footage of, Brett, while I was trying to tee up some interviews with the drivers.
The thing that was good about it, and what it showed once again, and it's something that you keep going on with from every level of motorsport, from supercars and the Grand Prix down to the Victorian state level series, is that if you can get crowds to turn up if you promote things well in advance, and they did a really good job of it. I mean, how many times have we turned up to things, even up to the stage of like supercar launches and all the rest of it, where we've probably been the only television there, and sometimes they won't even let us go there. Nobody turns up, but when we went along there, I mean, there was a queue of people. We were there, Channel 9 were there, Channel 7, 10, the ABC were there. I mean, the ABC never turn up to those sorts of things, but they were at that. Yep. And they ran a story on it in the 7 o'clock news, and they don't normally do that anywhere, but also, I don't know. It looks like we've lost Pete somewhere along the track. So, Pete, if you're out there and you can hook up back and you're watching, you can hook up back again. He was having some problems with his feed tonight as well.
I figured out what my problems were too. The audio should sound pretty good now.
Yeah, no, it's fine. That's fine now.
Difference between Firefox and Chrome.
Yep. Yes. The Paul saying the guys that run the AusX come from a motocross background, which helps. That really does. I mean, it makes a big difference when you've got people who love the sport, and it's like sort of getting drag racing run by people who know nothing about drag racing. There they come in and say, "Oh yeah, well we ran a Grand Prix, or we ran a 6-hour production car race at Bathurst or something," and it's motor racing is motor racing. It's not quite that simple. And they were passionate about supporting it. They were passionate about. They knew the people to invite. They knew the angle to there, and they made sure everybody was accessible. I mean, we go to so many things where you feel like you're there under sufferance, and they look down their nose at you, and it's like, oh, you lot of hearing, Yeah, okay. What do you want? Just stand back and let the big boys get there. And if there's time, come in and we'll see what we can do for you. But no, we were treated with lots of respect. We asked for people, and it was a matter of that. Yep, who do you want? We'll try and get them for you.
Well, when we went into the media room for the press conference after the show. There was a couple of different spots for stages, and it was no exclusive area. You have to go here, you go there, or any particular. It was first in, best dressed. If you remember, Brett, I got the camera up right front and centre. I got prime spot on top of the stage in front of him.
There's another case, spot. And there's another case in point. It's doing it properly so the media can do their job properly. The room that we did there was a separate room for the interviews. It was well lit. It had proper sound. We had access to we had access to a proper feed. We could plug in our sound direct into the desk. Everything was it was run. There was a structure behind it. It was run really well. Now contrast that to the launch of Supercars that I went to in Sydney. It was a dog's breakfast. They had it. The idea was we're going to have it in public. We're going to have it in Sydney. We're going to invite people along, and come one, come all. You can see the supercars will be there, and the drivers and the stars and everything. There were probably 60 people turned up. Apart from Foxtel and Channel 10 who were broadcasting the thing, once again there was another podcast guy there and me. The only live stream was when I decided to strap the iPhone onto the top of the camera because no one else was doing it, and I went, well, no one else is doing it, and so I might as well. So I went live on Facebook Live just by putting it into the holder on top of the camera while I was shooting for the show, and we streamed that live. Otherwise, nobody was. Yeah.
Shame on you. You had the hanger, you had the Opera House, you had Botany Bay there, you had this beautiful backdrop. What else do you want? Come on, get some sense, man.
But that was the thing. I mean, and afterwards they did the whole launch thing, and then at the end of it, it was like, there were no interviews like planned, but they said at the end of the formal presentation, there'll be opportunities for one-on-one interviews. Well, as soon as the formal presentation had finished, pretty much everyone disappeared, and they were dragging people away. And it was really that, I went direct and sort of, because I went to Supercars Media and said, look, like, we want to get an interview with, they're really busy. That won't be possible. In the end, I just went there and I went straight to Dave Reynolds, to James Courtney, and to Scott McLaughlin. And I just said, guys, can you hang on here, and just do a quick interview there? And it was, yeah, of course, not a problem. And it was like, the media managers going, no.
Yeah, the gatekeepers don't like but not being able to control the message.
Yeah,
you could have interviewed the Coca-Cola car.
Well, but that was the point. I mean, they had the whole Coca-Cola thing. It was really. I'm sorry, but it was amateur hour. It was an embarrassment.
And if anyone from Coca-Cola is watching, you're quite welcome to contract In Pit Lane for your social media streaming.
Well, that was the point. If we were doing it, I mean, what we have done from the Motorsport Fan Zone, both at Crown Casino and Federation Square, had considerably more production value, equipment, and professionalism about it than the launch of Supercars, which was, Foxtel, but the only people who were doing it, the media, but they had their own phone, but they were just holding it in their hand. I at least had it strapped to a tripod.
Dare I say more pre-planning by you two guys as well, though, too, between Brett and Stuart. It would have had more pre-planning going into a live at Federation Square than it did at Sydney Harbour. Oh, as I said, we've got a coat hanger, we've got water, we've got some sort of arc. Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, that's fine. You guys,
do you reckon many of them realise that they don't own the footage if they've got the coat hanger and the harbour bridge or the opera house in the back of it? It's under the same sort of thing as shooting the Shrine in Melbourne, where you don't own the footage; they own the footage.
They're too arrogant to care.
It was all done in partnership with the New South Wales government, Events New South Wales, which was another reason why it was so disappointing that it was at that standard. I mean, they had pretty much everybody was there, but there was no structure to it. There was no turning up and saying, what I see, and I get this before every single Formula One round, before every single NASCAR round, before every single IndyCar round, you get the media diary, and it says, and like NASCAR will go into let's say they go to Bristol. In the week they go to Bristol, in the week beforehand, on the Friday beforehand, they will send out a thing saying, hey, if you're in the Bristol area and you run a radio station, a television station, you do a podcast, whatever, and if you want guests for your show, for your breakfast show, for your sports show, for your motorsport, whatever, on the following days, here are the following people who will be available at the following times, and you can book a slot. And so
it's a professionally run event.
Yeah, and that's what annoys me when you look at what they're doing at this level. It's like, will there be chance for one-on-one interviews? Oh, it's going to be difficult. Well, I'm sorry, I got up at 3:00 in the morning and drove an hour and a half to flew into Sydney at some ungodly hour and spent a day wandering around and get down there and they sort of say, oh yeah, look, it's a bit difficult. They've got to go to Foxtel because they're doing the commercial they shouldn't have scheduled the commercial. If they're going to have the media thing, or at least say there will be no opportunities for one-on-one interviews. Don't say the only reason I went up is because, yes, there will be chances for one-on-one interviews, so I went up there. get up there and they
grab an
say,
interview.
yeah, and it was, as I said, it was only by going like over the top, and literally they were dragging Scotty McLaughlin out. And I said, look, before you go, can you get there? And he said, yeah, hang on a second. I'll just talk to Brett and then we'll go. And they were, but he gave his time, Dave gave his time, James Courtney gave his time, and we got some interviews out of it. But when I went looking for other people, I said, oh, can we get an interview with Sean? No, Sean's too busy. Can we get an interview? No, they're gone. What about, is Jamie Winker? No, he left it straight away. He had something to do with it. What's the point of you got every single V8 every single supercar driver in Australia there for one place at one time, and then as soon as the clock struck 12, it was like they were all going to turn into pumpkins, because it was like 12 o'clock, everybody disappeared, and it was like, okay. And then the thing started 40 minutes late, which is another pet peeve of mine.
The people that you want to talk to actually are probably generous with their time. You'd think 90% of them would want to talk to you, and they have no problems. They have no obligations. The trouble is, though, it's the people that are planning the event itself. Say to them, you are here, you're here, you're here, and then you can take off from this point onwards. And that's the problem. And they don't, as you said, they're 40 minutes late for starters, so they're time constraints. And then Joe Blunt says, I've got to go reach one of my sponsors. Has got an open day over at 1 o'clock, and he's 45 minutes away. I'm already late for that. I've got to get going. So the trouble is, though, their time frame is not very good. So that I reckon they'd all be happy to chat with you and be able to do things, but they get put themselves under so much time constraint pressure that they can't offer their generous amount of time and fun and banter and humour and answer serious questions. So I think it's up to the organisation itself how unorganised and disjointed it is, that they would be able to give. It's as you said, you quoted at the start of it. It's a dog's breakfast. So update from the cricket. Our man Coley is out. We missed it all, so you'd have to jump onto the TV and have a look for yourself. You're watching us live on YouTube.
Doc, a lot of what you said there is very good, very strong points, but there's also one thing we've got to deal with, and that's that middle management who've only wanting to speak to the top media. It's almost like the same sort of attitude fanboys have about brand names. Only certain things are appropriate. So they don't want the message going out through anyone that they don't control. And it's the gatekeepers in middle management that are doing it, because the people who are actually behind the wheel driving turn around and go, motorsport program. Yeah, of course I'll talk to them. I'll talk to the fans. But middle management, no.
As is pointed out online, JV7, I think it could be S7 because I haven't got the glasses on there. JV5 E7. So as it's pointed out, they should set up a media pen. That's you see that at the end of every. When somebody comes out, the drivers, if they retire early, with the race is over, they take them to the media pen. Everybody waits around, and I've been in them before, but everybody gets their turn. You go all around, and they just lead them around, and just everybody gets their 4 or 5 minutes, so they get their own grabs.
One thing on that, Brett, and it's the same in F1 as it is in NASCAR, where the drivers always remember to be thankful to the team, the track, the country, the sponsors that they're covered with, and they do it in such a way that is it's good manners. Even if they've had a really bad day or they've been put into the wall by someone, they're thanking the team for giving them the opportunity to be at the race and thanking the track organisers and all. Right? It's well-trained people doing the presentations, whether it's Formula One or whether it's NASCAR. And the NASCAR guys are experts at it.
That can go against you, though.
They're getting really good at it.
That's something that can go against you, though. In the wrong there, I just saw recently in the NHRA, Leah Pratchett, I think her name is. Actually had a massive crash in the top field round. The thing it was one of those, the car broke in half things, and again, she's
going to be Leah Pritchard.
Richard. Yeah, she's had this massive crash, this blowover. Cars there at over 300 miles an hour, close to 500 kilometers an hour. She gets out at the end of it all, and it's obviously been a huge crash. And the first thing is, well, I'd like to say that the safety equipment in my insert sponsor name here there, and thanks to the people at Simpson for the wonderful harness that they got. And I low mileage. She just went off. She was just totally. It's like you've just walked out of you've walked away with your life out of this massive crash, and she's still sort of the sponsors. Got to thank the sponsors. Got to thank the sponsors.
Of course,
and I think
sanitized. It didn't really convey feelings.
Stuart is bringing this up. We should be okay with this. NHRA, unlike Formula One, actually are happy to get publicity. But if so this is
speaking of crashes, quickly on the bikes as well.
No, there you go. There we
go. Where did she go? It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
What I want to know
is such a rare thing to see these days.
It's been a while since it happened. It has happened a few times. Happened in Glenn Micros, in an American driver in Sydney, was racing up there at Sydney Dragway. He had a similar. Yeah, she got there. You can see. I mean, she's puffed as she's relieved to get out of there, but she's obviously winded. She's hurt her back. I mean, she's come down from a mile in the air at very high speed, and as you see, is walking away. But testimony to the great, fabulous safety here.
That one's for Mark Webber at the Mark Webber Flying Collection, isn't it? That one.
Yeah, she certainly earned her frequent flyer points there, but she but probably a bit faster than Mark's, even faster than Mark's.
I think Mark was. Yeah, I was going to say she got higher than Mark and probably a little bit faster than Mark, and she had parachutes to bring her back down. Mark didn't. Mark got stuck out a bit scarier. Mark thought, what the hell's going to get me back on the earth? While you're looking up on slow-mo, Mark Marquez, I'll just briefly want to touch on, has had a third operation on the 3rd of December, and he is still not going. Catch that.
It took off fairly early in the piece, didn't it?
Yeah, and the thing was that what I want to know is what happened to the front of the car, because you see what happened but the front of the car has obviously gone somewhere else, and we didn't see where that ended. There was a lot of people down. Yeah, because there's quite a few people down at the end of there's safety people. There's more television. Thankfully, that's the one thing that really freaks me out is obviously because we cover drag racing, you see some of those really big crashes and those huge speed events, and you say that photographer was really, really lucky to miss out on all those flying bits and pieces. And I must admit, I saw many, many years ago when I was a kid. There was a very famous and terrible incident where a car crashed and the whole supercharger came off the engine of the car and literally just tore the camera guy in half.
Another one out cricket, 5 down now. So Rahane's gone too, didn't catch that. There would have been a few people in the crowd getting some free memorabilia after that crash because there was plenty.
Well, you'd hope not, because it would have come into the.
Not from close up, but yeah.
But
they might have only got a 50-cent piece worth of carbon fiber, but that's probably they can stick on their desk at home and say, every time they watch the crash, here, look, that's part of the car you're watching right now.
The point is, as I keep saying to people, and as will you guys know as well, no matter how many times you watch it on television, you can never ever be prepared for the speed, the sheer acceleration, the incredible power of a top fuel drag. So there is no sight and sound like it anywhere in the world. The only thing that is close is a top fuel boat. If you've been lucky enough, I only ever saw it once, because I think there's only 2 in Australia, but I saw it once down at the National Water Sports Centre, but it was a top fuel hydroplane, And man, was that a spectacle to see. That's they are insane. Drag boat racing. Go and look at, if you've got some time and you want to sort of entertain yourself, look up Top Fuel drag boat racing on YouTube and just have a look at these things. They are just that's another level of insanity.
I'll back you up on that one, Brett.
With an opportunity to drown.
Yeah,
I'll back you up on Brett. When you've got a case of something going faster than the speed of sound, no reflexes in the world can combat something that's going out of control.
Pretty much.
Going fast, that speed doesn't. Not one person on this, not one human on this earth can react to it quick enough to something that's moving.
Well, just the rooster tail on the bloody thing when it took off. I remember because it was quite a windy day and the thing just blasted past where I was filming from. And it was just incredible, but it was like it started to rain because the rooster tail went so high in the air and the wind got hold of it. It just sort of blew over, and for about the next sort of 35 seconds, it was raining all over the crowd because just the rooster tail went a mile in the air. It was just incredible. Unfortunately, we just don't have that level of competition in Australia in drag boats to see those things regularly, but. Like you having.
No, but the only people with cojones that big are busy setting water speed records again for that same family.
Well, yeah, that's it. It's the son, Ken Warby's son now. Then it's basically a redesign of the sort of a slight update. It's not a radical redesign. It's just sort of.
It is funny when you watch the different drag boats and the hydroplane races, and the commentators will say fastest boats in the world, and everyone's going. Mr. Warby, would you like to comment?
Well, he's one of the few that managed to survive. I mean, because the water, that's the thing. The water speed record has probably taken more lives than the land speed record.
It has.
So, so it's very, very dangerous. And he not only did he survive, I honestly don't know why. I mean, you'd go back and want to do it again. Under those circumstances, seems to be sort of pulling the tail on the tiger just once too often. But yeah, it'd be it certainly was amazing to watch. And looking at some of his test runs on YouTube, it looks a remarkably stable craft under the circumstances compared with some of the others I've seen.
Got some unstable stuff for you to look up too, Stuart. If you can, if you have a quick brief look and maybe throw it up on YouTube if you can. The Jim Carner 2020 from Travis Pastrana takeover when he had a WRX and jumped.
Oh yes.
We won't put it up at the moment because, as I said, NHRA. I mean, NHRA are really good. NHRA sort of they will send us the links to their YouTube and say. Please, by all means, use this on the show. I mean, they understand they want publicity. They're happy to have publicity. As long as you acknowledge that it comes from them, they're more than happy. That's why we run it all the time on the news, because it's easy to get hold of, and also because the races are so short. We should show the whole event. I mean, and also that it's not sort of regularly seen on. Not regularly seen on local television. You've got to get the NHRA pass line, and that's really expensive under Australian thing. Yeah, don't show that.
I'm not pressing play. I'm just leaving the website there so everybody knows what to look up.
Everyone, I think everyone knows to look up what to look up.
Look up that one, and it's an 800 horsepower WRX. And he runs around insanely around the city, so to speak, and invites the people.
Only 800 horsepower.
800.
Only 800 horsepower.
And there's the new Spirit of Australia, which you can see there. That's
absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, once again a very conventional design. When you see some of the other things that have run around, you sort of think that I mean, there's some really weird things. Speaking of weird, I don't know if anybody saw any of it today, but at the moment, of all the international sport that's come on, it used to be a really big thing. It's not anymore because Australia doesn't take part in it, but that's the America's Cup. Have you seen those? You seen what they're racing in the America's Cup now?
Last I heard, they were all catamarans. What are they doing now?
Well, they are they're catamarans beyond. I mean, and they're designed by people like Adrian Newey. I mean, they are like not
hydrofoil catamarans.
Yeah, they're amazing looking things. They was live streaming today, and I saw a bit of it, and they are blisteringly fast, and they're just ultra high tech. They were so high tech that Adrian Newey sort of looked at the category and went, "I could have a lot of fun here."
Catamarans, they're hydroplanes now.
Yeah.
They're
boat has got its entire hull out of the water. That's sitting on a hydroplane.
Yep.
Yeah, you can see they're hardly touching the water. You can see at the side there.
If anything goes wrong, it'll be more like an airplane crash.
And
that's another keel off to the side. That's also a hydroplane.
Wow. At that date, you got the 15th of December, so that's a current pick of one as well too, to a certain extent.
Yeah. So they're running. They were running today. And got there.
I'll see if I can find some racing footage, because this is from their official coverage, so it's advertising their product. Let's just fast forward a bit. There you go.
What car show? Well, you're looking for that. What's your car show that you have your AC Cobra sitting up there for, Richie?
That was from Hanging Rock, the annual car show at Hanging Rock.
Your pick there, was it too, Richie? You took that.
Sorry.
Picture? You took that.
Yes, I take all my pictures.
Very good.
Yeah,
and,
that's
what year was that?
AC Cobra replica, I think.
And
I think that's probably the Daytona. That's the Daytona. Daytona next to it. Yeah. Speaking of which, I put up on YouTube today.
But he's also got a Quattro in the background.
Oh yeah,
3 of them side by side.
Yes. Yeah, I put up today. Our mate George Vidovic sent up there. He raced at Sebring last week, and he's put up some in-car footage from running the Python at Sebring. So that's on our Facebook page. But you can track down the link for George for George's YouTube channel as well. But he's racing overseas. So the Python. So there's a man who's living the dream. That's for sure. Hey, listen, I think we've pretty much come to the end of the day now. Now I'm not sure about next week. I don't know because apparently there's something coming on in the next week or so, and I'm not sure what it's all about, but apparently people are making quite a fuss of it. It's got something to do with giving people things, and I don't know what it's all about, but anyway, for anybody who's so I'm not sure whether we'll be back next week or whether we're taking a break or what's happening.
People are giving other people public holidays next week, I think, Brett, in the next couple of weeks.
Well, that will be good. Well, we might have there. Probably won't be there. We'll play it by ear. I mean, got there now. What, as I said, was out at Sandown very briefly. Unfortunately, had some the health got in the way again on the Saturday, and I couldn't get back on the Sunday for the same sort of reason. But before, as I said, caught up with Tommy Smith for an interview. Really, really smart guy, a young guy with a lot of talent. Was talking a lot of common sense about the place of S5000. He ran the Formula Toyota, the New Zealand TRS series car at Sandown in what was called Formula Free. It's the first time we've seen that car there, and it was running really quickly. It was running very fast laps there. And as he was saying, it was at the moment, it was fantastic. We've got S5000, but we still need, if Formula Ford isn't going to sort of have the big revival, and Formula 4 hasn't worked, we still need something to be in that. We still need something to be in that that area that like to go between karts and S5000. And he was saying that he thought that the Toyota Racing Series cars were a pretty good bet for those. He was having a ball driving it. And as he said, it was probably faster it was certainly faster through the twisty bits than the S5000 would be. So, but obviously in the straight line, the 5000 is an absolute monster, and he absolutely adored every second of it. But I will get that for stage. I've been setting up a new computer this week, and all sorts of things, sort of trying to get that all up and running amongst a whole bunch of other things. So, so I have.
So that's the M1 Mac Mini.
the M1 Mac Mini. I might even do a story, but there's a few things about it which might be interesting for people who are looking to buy the Mac. The short term is fantastic, brilliant, but not quite as brilliant as some of the YouTube channels might have you there. It's
their tyres, did they a little bit there, Brett?
I think there's a bit of overreacting in terms of their. I mean, look, it is for the cost. It is unbelievable. It is just for the price. It is just in another.
It's the first Apple that's going to be genuine value for money to the point where you can expect parents to be able to afford to get one for their students.
And I've got the base model. With a bit of extra storage in it, but I got the base model, and just because they said you could do it, so I tried it out, and I had 6 streams of 4K multicam playing it with no problem at all. And in the background, I was running Audacity for sound. I had Chrome open. I started to play some stuff from YouTube, and then I opened OBS and streamed it as well. And all of that did, and it didn't even slow down. And in the whole time, the fan has not come on. And if I put my hand on top of it, it is as cool as a cucumber. And it's been running now for flat out for 48 hours.
With all that running at once, you didn't blow a pooper valve, did you yourself? There, Brett, did you?
Well, that's what I have done. Yes, I've done it. It's been a pretty tough week, but anyway, we'll get through that. But that meant unfortunately I didn't get as much done at Sandown as I would have liked, because it was an interesting meeting and there were some interesting cars out there. But you're breaking up really badly, Doc.
I didn't quite catch that.
Yeah.
I see. Taking you 2 hours just to shut down all the stuff you had running all at once. Oh, bright shiny light. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Geez. Oh, I've got...
Hang on. Squirrel.
Yes.
Yep.
We'll leave you alone. Well, enough bagging the
now,
he's got a new toy.
Before we go, Brett, was there something I missed about the Porsche, perhaps, given the lovely image of the Golf Western 917?
Yes, we did. We mentioned it. Well, we mentioned it before you were fashionably late once again. Yes, as we said, Porsche coming back to Le Mans and also to IMSA as well. Interesting that they're running that like Audi, they're going to run the LMDH, which is the Daytona prototype version, the IMSA, and not the hypercar, which Toyota are running. Now, the first spy shots of the actual racing Toyota in testing, I think at Portimao, have been leaked on Graham Goodwin's website. Daily Sportscar. So if you go to Daily Sportscar, you can have a look, and it looks much better than I thought. I was a bit, seeing some of the artist renders and some of the road going version, the concept car. I thought it was going to be a bit ugly, but it looks much better in real life. But it's interesting that all of those, that apart from Toyota and probably Peugeot, everybody else is picking up the American regulations for the very reason that the head of Porsche Motorsport said it makes financial sense. You get, everybody goes out and they buy it's a control chassis, 1 of 4. They just go out, they buy the chassis, they add their running gear, they add their body work, and they can run for a quarter of what they've been running. It's something like the LMP. They're not as technologically advanced. They're not as fast. They're not sort of other world in terms of there. But they'll be a car that what Audi's going to do is they're going to sell theirs. They're going to run their own team, but they're also going to sell them out. And so we could have 12, 15 cars in the lead category on the grid at Le Mans in a couple of years' time for the 100th anniversary. It'll be amazing. So great news.
Leak shot of the Toyota as well too, Brett. You see that one? There's a leak shot of the Gazoo.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's a great good. That's a Daily Sports car. So if you want to have a look, it's a bit far away. It's a bit blurry, but it does give you a bit of an idea of particularly the aerodynamics on it, and it's sort of the big wing at the back sort of balances out the rest of the car. So anyway, so that's as I said. Box. Great show as always. Keep up the good. Thanks for that. Box. Much appreciated. And that was really the alternative title for this. It was either Full Course Yellow or Box, and somebody else had the dummy grid. So, and Mad Cow, great show, Mark. So, all Russell, to everybody who's been watching, to Paul, everybody who's watched tonight, we sort of rambled on again. That's what this is all about. It's just us sort of rambling on. Pete, I don't know why Pete's having some internet problems, so hopefully we'll get Pete back. If not next week, sometime early in the new year, we'll see what happens and how we feel and what time we run at next week. Because I don't know, is next Thursday Christmas Eve?
I think you might be right.
Yes.
Because I might be caroling, if it's
that's frightening. Does that come with a warning?
Carol,
is there a warning label on there?
It depends on how Carol feels about it. I mean, so
that's caroling.
I'm hoping I'm caroling. I might be, Catherineing or Cheryling or whatever.
Hopefully, when you're caroling, you'll be social distancing as well.
Social distancing. No,
that really depends on Carol, doesn't it?
We're keeping this clean. Okay, guys, thanks a lot. We're going to end this broadcast now. So everybody who tuned in, thanks for watching us, and we'll see you again. Remember, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. There will be some stuff coming up from Sandown, both from the AMRS and also from the Shannon's event last week. That'll be coming up over the next couple of weeks in between me watching and thankfully going to the quiz. Thank you all for members too for Boxing Day test. I'm really looking forward to that. That'll be fantastic. So we will see you, if not next week. If we don't see you next week, have a happy whatever it is you're celebrating next week. And if we don't see you the week after, let's hope like hell that we have a better 2021 than we had a 2020, because this last year and the year before for me, they've been absolutely awful for all of us. So let's say there. Russell, thank you, Russell. Much appreciated with that. We'll catch you all later. We'll see you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.